So this idea of like a thesis, antithesis, synthesis framework to provide problem, reaction, solution scenarios where you go through this two-phase Fabianistic revolution, one violent and one non-violent. And so what is it there to do? Is to implement the social justice of the common good. And so in communist subversion, we go through each one of those, like, and so we'll make like a little bit of that statement, and then like, oh, here is how they're doing it, right? So, and they do it by stealth and secrecy, through peace and politics, by the 4 stages of ideological subversion, which comes from Bezmenov, right? Demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and then normalization. If you notice, we're kind of moving into the normalization phase, right?
Everything seems to be going back to normal.
And so, but as Bezmenov said, when he talks about, when the tanks moved in, it's kind of like, now the situation has
when the Soviet tanks moved into Poland, the situation has been normalized.
Right. And so the idea is to reveal like who are the key players. Like when you hear things like the global outbreak, what's behind that? So that has a long history. People think like the protein that's injected that has a long history, right?
Steroids.
Steroids. Yeah. And so the idea of all of the, I don't want to say stuff because we were so on the brink of like getting everything deleted. It's kind of like you got to tiptoe around these things and walk on eggshells.
I think everybody kind of gets it, So just
So, but that leading into dovetails into Klaus Schwab's book, COVID-19 and the Great Reset. Don't let a good crisis go to waste. That crisis management stuff is what these roundtable groups were set up to do, to create the problem, reaction, solution scenarios. And now, as you see, we're going to move, the COVID crisis moves you into the climate crisis. The first person was now diagnosed with climate change.
Well, interesting.
And so that's going to move into what we'll cover later in the God, King, Father, Friend podcast, which is Sunday law. That's going to be another, because the environment needs to rest, and we already have all the Protestant world resting on this day, so we'll get the rest of the world to rest on Sunday because of the environment.
When 2 years ago, the 2 weeks to flatten curve came out, the first thing we started seeing, the first reports were like, hey, this is really good for the ozone layer. The Earth has finally can rest and kind of rejuvenate, bring recover some of the ozone layer that we've been destroying.
And so when you think of normally when you hear we're going to rest on Sunday, that idea, if you're talking Genesis parlance, rest does not mean sleep or
take a nap.
It don't mean any of that, right? So rest means rulership. So if you're going to rest on Sunday, you're going to rule on Sunday. That's what the idea is, right? So which is why God rests on the Sabbath day, right? So because He's taken up His rulership. What did He do on the 8th day? He ruled. What did He do on the 9th day? He ruled, right? So and then you get the Sabbath, which is the memorial of creation week, and this is my memorial for all times, is what He says, right? So we'll get to that.
We'll be more in detail for God, King, Father, Friend. This is like a snippet of what you can see, what it's going to be about.
There's a ton of stuff in there. So another thing is, we'll cover the World Economic Forum, because that's not a new thing either.
That
right?
too,
so it goes back to the 70s.
It doesn't just happen to come like, hey, all of a sudden we have this organization that this is what they do, and all these world's young leaders somehow, they're part of this fourth industrial change, and then they're all champions for
So and all of your quote unquote young world leaders are part of the young world leaders, right? So, and that's under the World Economic Forum, and they were trained to do what they're doing today. So if you don't like what they're doing, then you can trace the policies of their training to the World Economic Forum, and so that traces to Henry Kissinger. So,
in 70s, were you saying, right?
And so what they said, they had a problem that they were trying to solve that they had created, and it really had to do with population reduction. But they were reducing the population in Western world, and they wanted to reduce it in their quote-unquote third world, which was something that they wanted to correct now. And so that was kind of like the precursor. And the World Economic Forum is like a small piece of a puzzle when you're comparing them to like the Club of Rome, Budapest, and Madrid, or any of the other players that we can kind of name through here. And then you get, transhumanism, climate change, Sunday law. We already talked about. They're going to cover that. Another thing that we want to cover is kind of like the secret society stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we talked about last time. There's the secret social societies, and then there's the secret societies. Right?
Yeah.
So the secret social society is the Club of Rome, the Bilderberger is the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the World, and there's a whole bunch of institutes of international affairs, and we'll detail. We'll probably should provide like a chart so everybody can see all that stuff, because it's kind of in depth, and all of it's connected to like all your institutions. Right, so there's a ton of institutions: the Aspen Institute, the Brookings Institute, the Stanford Institute of Research. There's a whole bunch of that stuff, and so, but then you have your secret societies, and so your secret societies: the Templars, the Rosicrucians, the Jesuits, the SMOM, Opus Dei, the Cathars, the Brotherhood of the Cross, Order of St. John. Scottish and York Rite Freemasonry, and then like Skull and Bones, Dagger and Quill, Scroll and Key. The idea is you go through all the different pieces of this concept, and then once you get who the key players are, what the key institutions are, what the structures of power that they set up, how they work throughout nation states, how they've governed the world, as it were, from behind the scenes. In this second version, what we would call the sacred version, or that includes the mystery religions version of the New World Order, is when you bring in this idea of divine right of kings. And so if you just want to appease an audience that says like, hey, I'm not interested in all that religious stuff that they've lumped in together with it, if these people have that ideology, that's fine, but I want to know what they're doing in real world events, right? So how do we know that they're behind these wars? How do we know that it's their businesses that are polluting the environment? How do we know?
And that's the beauty, right?
Yeah.
They admitted themselves.
So that is the good piece, right? So and so from the first version of this, we show them that piece. Here's them in their own words saying what they do. Here's how they appoint the next rulers. Here's the how they work behind the scenes.
So
here's
for
their future
everybody
goals.
that doesn't know, like Communist version 2, it's a 3.5 hour long, and most of it is quotes, right?
Yeah, it's just reading stuff. Right? And so, but so when we include the mystery religions, that's going to open up a whole another can of worms. And so here's where a lot of people that are involved in this subject, they camp out on kind of like Luciferianism. And so you'll see like a lot of focus around that, and or the Luciferian aspects of it, the satanic aspects of it, which are really those kind of sit on top of like this pantheistic idea, because